Hi, Misty.
And I was muted, so.
Oh, thanks for the email. That was a good heads up. I was
Well,
wondering when we did the book club, why I kept having to admit people.
well, I had seen an email come across about Zoom, and it wasn't for you guys, but I opened it up and I was looking at it. Well, I guess they're going to require that you either do a password or do a waiting room for added security. And if you
Got
don't
it.
do either of them, then you're just not going to be able to do it, I guess. So I had emailed, I actually voxed Erica, and I'm like, hey, Erica, what are we going to do about this? And then this morning I was like, holy moly, I'm like, Cheryl runs these. I'm like, she kind of needs to know what I did. So I changed it on all of them because I figured that would be easier than a password.
Oh, definitely.
So, oh my goodness, just anything to change it up, right?
Oh my gosh. That's what's just so crazy. When I just think about teachers doing this, because I was a teacher for a while, having to admit the kids or just give them passwords. And
I know. And you know what? I am
insane.
also a teacher.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Well, I was a teacher, and I'm not going to lie to you, wasn't wasn't my favorite thing in the world.
No, it's the hottest job in the world.
Oh, it definitely was. I can't tell you, like I would leave at the end of the day and I was so exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And every day there were 4 or 5 kids that I wanted to bring home with me.
Oh, I know.
And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm getting emotional now.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
On
it
some occasions, I almost did. I mean, I bought prom tickets. I would give them food. I would give them money.
I know it was just unbelievable. And the stuff, I mean, one of the classrooms, I was long-term subbing in a middle school classroom. We couldn't have pens or pencils because we stabbed each other with them. So we
Yeah,
had to write with crayons.
yeah, it's crazy.
And and you know, it just broke my heart
Yeah.
because deep down they were all good kids. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They were all good kids, and
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of broke my heart that
Yeah.
I don't know. I was devastated every day. I was devastated.
What
And
grade did you teach? Oh,
well,
the school. Yeah.
I was actually like a long-term sub.
Okay.
So I kind of went to different places. Like I was at that middle school for
Mm,
about a month and a half.
okay.
And I got a lot of middle school assignments, even though I'm elementary certified, because
Okay.
I was a little bit older
Yeah.
when I was subbing,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't fresh out of college when I
Yeah.
decided to go and start teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so, and the kids, you would say stuff to them, and you would tell them that, the reason that I'm telling you this is because I care about you. And they would be like, you don't care about me. And I'm like, I do care about you. I'm like, that's why I'm telling you not to do this or not to do that, because I
Yeah.
do. And they would get this look like, what? Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't teach in the best part of town, let's say. And my first day at the long-term subbing position at the middle school, I got there and there were state troopers everywhere because a third grader had brought a gun to school.
Wow.
A third grader.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah. It's a lot.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And I started as a sub too, and then went back and got my certification. So.
Yeah, well, I got my certification and then didn't teach.
Okay.
And then went and decided, maybe I would like doing this. I was in sales for a whole lot of years and thought,
Mm-hmm.
I might regret, this might be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah. Schools don't really prepare, is what I've learned, because I've done a lot of professional development with teachers,
Yes,
especially when working with students that they thought were extremely difficult. And yeah, it's just a lot.
it
It's a
is.
lot.
It
It's a
is. And
lot.
I have all the respect in the world for teachers
Mm-hmm.
that want to
Mm-hmm.
be there. And
Mm-hmm.
And the kid, and I hate to say it, I just wasn't going to do it justice because my head was always like, oh my goodness, the kids, they're, they can't concentrate because they
Yeah.
would come to school
Hmm.
without jackets and there's two
Oh
feet of
yeah.
snow on the ground.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And, it was just so much. It just broke my heart every day.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 4 or 5 of them every day that I wanted to bring home with me.
Oh, I know. I know. Yeah. Like I said, I almost did once. But yeah, there's lots of them that I supported though.
Well, that's really all that you can do, and I
Yeah.
guess because we weren't allowed, you weren't allowed to hug them, you weren't, and sometimes they wanted that, they craved
Yeah.
that,
No. No,
they
I would. I would hug if a kid
see
was having a really bad day and it was. Yeah.
see I would too because I figured, hey, I'm a sub,
Yeah.
and if these kids feel close enough to me to do that, then that's fine.
Exactly.
That's fine. I mean, and you had the school that I was in, you had teachers that wouldn't break up fights because they weren't allowed to touch the kids.
Yeah, it's insane.
And you had, and it was girls. It
Yeah.
was girls that were just like battling.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my goodness, you wanted to, and I would always pull them aside and be like, hey, look, we girls, we gotta stick together.
Right. Exactly.
You can't you can't be fighting. Oh, and I would
Yeah.
tell them, and they're like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm like, "Oh, you'll see one day."
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Sheila. I'm making you the co-host. Is that good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
And I'm just working through one technology piece here, Cheryl, so bear with me as I get up and running.
Testing.
It works. We could hear you testing.
Oh, I said all that on mute. Okay, I'll start all over. Thank you, guys. We're going to have some special programming for you coming up real soon. In September, we're going to have speed mentoring on Saturday, September 12th. Information on how to sign up for that, as with everything else, is on our website, ICF Chicago. And we're going to be starting reading our new book in October. It's going to be a 7 weeks. And we're going to be reading the book Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. And it's going to go from October 3rd through November 14th. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have it on Saturday morning, bright and early at 9 a.m. So if you'd like to sign up for that, feel free to do that. And you guys should be getting information about the new book club real soon. All righty, so that's it on my end. Sheila.
Sheila, if you're speaking, we're not hearing you.
Yeah, she said she was having some technical difficulties.
All right, there we go. Can you hear me, Cheryl?
Yep, I sure can.
Okay, give me one more thing to check. Okay, I think I'm good.
Perfect.
Did we have
Can't see you,
anything,
Sheila. If you intend to turn on your camera, we're seeing your lovely photo.
oh, let me see if I can get my camera going today, guys. There we go. All right. Hi, everyone. Were there any initial kind of kickoff announcements or anything needed, Cheryl, or are we all set there?
We're all set, thank you.
Okay. Well, so excited to be here with everyone today, just as we kind of talk about this kickoff topic as we head into the core competency call. So a little bit of a departure from what we've been doing every single month and kind of bringing it back to this credential process and chatting about this a little bit more. So talking about the road to credential. One, yes, there's process and there's things that the ICF has put in place that give structure and guidance. But I mean, for anyone who has already gone through this process and maybe you're looking to upgrade your credential, maybe your credential lapsed and you're looking to recertify, or maybe you just know others in your life who've gone through this process, you probably can attest to from those different experiences or knowing those different people that it's a very different path for each person. It's kind of a unique journey that they take to get to their credential. And a big part of that is the driving force behind it, the why you're pursuing your specific credential, what you're looking to get out of it. So I thought maybe we could start there by having everyone reflect for a second and think about, what's your why? What's the reason that you're excited to learn about? You're considering going on this journey of either attaining your credential, recertifying, or increasing your level of credential. And I'd love if anyone would be up for it just to share a few of their thoughts and ideas in the chat. Also, feel free, if you're feeling brave, to come right off mute. I love to hear other people's voices in this conversation as well.
Hi, Sheila. I'll jump in. It's Linda Leong, and I've been coaching for a very long time, but I never received an ICF credential. And with the world of coaching is getting flooded with all different types of individuals, which is good. But I wanted the credential to distinguish myself that I am a certified coach, if you will, and a professionally recognized coach.
I love that. Yeah, distinguishing the kind of that recognition that comes with the credential behind you from the largest governing credentialing body of coaching. Absolutely. Thanks, Linda. And I see a few things coming in the chat here. So have my PCC during the midterm when the markers were coming into being. Always interested in learning more. Absolutely. Skill growth as a coach, credibility. Great. Absolutely. I can relate to that. And just interested in listening. Someone who is kind of considering this, playing around with it and exploring. Absolutely. And then Greg said, I saw a quote recently that a better world starts with a better you as a coach. I love that. I love that. I love that. So just lots of opportunities for growth and development I'm seeing coming in here. Appreciation for the ICF's code of ethics. So that's sitting behind and underneath this credential. Absolutely. Get an education from sitting in on this that will work towards your credential. Fantastic. And then just would love to learn more about credentialing and other folks' journeys. Great.
Hi, this is Anita. I'm actually on my last leg of CTI certification, and I wanted to definitely add ICF's credentials to the mix. My why is I'm retiring in the next 4 to 5 months to really pursue coaching full time. So I wanted, as someone else said, just distinguish myself from, everyone else. And ICF has an awesome reputation. I've been a member for a little over a year now. So I thought that now's a great time to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I love that idea of taking it to the next level. Great.
Hi, I'm Skip, and I am here in Chicago. I got my certification from the University of Miami in an FC program. ICF program 5 years ago, and I've never applied for I've just never finished the process to get the credential from ICF. And I figure, it's really about time that really for me, a matter of completion. And there's been some aspect, I think, that I've done some coaching, but I think there's been some aspect still of why would people want to hear me? How could I really help people when I really don't have my life together fully? And, through this process of COVID, I realized it's all day by day, and it's obvious that nobody really has their life together fully. And we're all experiencing the same thing. And it's so I don't feel alone in that anymore. And somehow that has lifted me up to say, hey, I think people do have, I do have something to say. I do have a voice.
I love that. And so a number of things to hit on there. One, you are right. You are not alone. In no way are you alone. And there's a little bit of that imposter syndrome that comes up. So I know as I'm training new coaches, as I'm mentoring and supervising coaches, that's really a consistent theme where we kind of feel that imposter syndrome, like, am I good enough? I'm going to be found out, but all of that education experience and everything you put into your journey absolutely, gives you that credibility. And there is a lot of value in having this credential behind you as well. So thanks so much for bringing that up, Skip. And then a double clicks in the chat here along the lines of the body of ethics and things like that. And a couple of folks looking to upgrade their skill, looking to move on to the next highest level of credential and exploring that too. Well, fantastic. I love having all of this energy and enthusiasm around the exploration and moving this forward. So a little bit about my background. I see so many familiar names as I look at the chat here. So I know a number of you, which is fantastic. I am a professor at a local university where we actually have an accredited coach training program. So if anyone is interested in that type of a thing, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to share information with you. And I myself am an executive leadership and career coach. And I have been on my credentialing journey and coaching journey for about 12 years when I started my training 12 years ago, and have moved up the ranks of the credential, and about 3 years ago attained my MCC. So when I say the word journey, I mean that very personally. It is a journey, but one that I've personally found to be well worth it. One of the familiar names that I'm seeing, and I'm terrible, you guys, I should be getting so much better at this with all of our Zoom meetings and things that we're doing. But looking at the chat with the participant list and my notes and my slides, I'd like to say I'm better at it than I am. But I do see that my friend Susan is in the room here. So one of my co-MCC presenters for these monthly sessions. So she also has attained her MCC and is passionate about supporting the growth of other coaches throughout the profession. So I wanted to give her a shout out. And Susan, feel free to jump in at any point too. And I don't think...
Thank you, Sheila. I love that you're asking the question. I think that's really good to get the context of what people want for the year. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I don't think I see Jackie here, so I didn't want to miss her, but our other partner in crime who does these sessions with us, Jackie's as well. So kind of starting at the beginning, because I guess that's a good place to start, right? Let's start at the beginning, is that the International Coach Federation, again, that largest governing and credentialing body of the profession, has 3 levels of certification, and everything and anything is an acronym these days, right? So as we talk about these 3 levels of certification, they are ACC, Associate Certified Coach, PCC, Professional Certified Coach, and MCC, Master Certified Coach. Now, a lot of people start at the ACC level, one, because you can see that their thresholds are a little bit different as far as requirements along the lines of training hours and specific coaching experience hours. So when I say training hours and coaching experience hours, what I mean by that is that your training hours are the different things along the lines of your coach training, your coach specific training that you've gone through, and all those good things. And all of us have gone down different paths as to what our, coach training has looked like. and one of you mentioned at the beginning of our time together today that you're at the end of your CTI journey. So one of the examples of coach training out there. But the number of training hours. And then the second differentiator is the number of coaching experience hours that you have. So for that reason, a lot of folks end up going for their ACC first because kind of in that stepping up program, they will get to 100 hours of coaching experience after their training. And then once they reach 500 and the 125 training hours, they'll move up to that. One change the ICF did make about 1.5 years ago. So the ICF's made quite a few changes over the last 2 years, really to bring even more credibility and backbone to their credentialing process, and really to strengthen, as so many of you mentioned, the prestige and just the in general, credibility behind what they're offering from a credentialing standpoint. One of the things that they did change is when you go for your first credential, if you already have the 125 hours and 500 hours, you can go right for that middle level PCC professional certified coach. However, in order to get your MCC, one change is that you do have to first achieve your PCC before you can then go on to get your MCC. And there's a number of reasons that they did this, but one of the biggest being that they've seen such a huge increase in the success rate of folks going up for their MCC. I mean, you've heard some really crazy numbers in the past of the very low percentage of applicants that actually achieve their MCC when they apply. Having this put in place where you have to achieve your PCC first has really increased that likelihood of success. So in the chat, would love to hear what level of credential are the folks in this room? What are you looking to attain as your next step, whether that's growing into the next level or attaining your first level? Would love to kind of get a sense of that. Feel free to pop that in the chat. ACC Associate Certified Coach, PCC Professional Certified Coach, or MCC Master Certified Coach. Okay. So in starting with, awesome, seeing some really good diversity here. We got a little bit of everything in the room. ACC, PCC, and MCC. Starting with pathways. So pathways really speaking to that education piece, that training piece. There are currently 3 pathways to work towards your credential from that education and training hours perspective. So the one that the ICF is really kind of starting to put more parameters around is the portfolio path. Now, when you hear folks talk about the wild, wild west of coaching, you know, as things are becoming a little bit more professionalized and standardized, this portfolio path is being tightened up a little bit more in the context of the International Coach Federation. It used to be that you could piece together a whole bunch of different trainings and try to showcase that it aligned with the ICF. The ICF is now moving towards still allowing this kind of creative compilation of education hours, but they do need to be approved trainings through the ICF. They could be approved coach education hours that you would be putting a whole bunch together to get to that 60 hours for your ACC or the 125 hours for your PCC. Now, the accredited coach specific training hours, this is when you start getting into a little bit more of a programmatic as opposed to these one-off trainings, that's 1 or a couple hours. The accredited coach specific training hours have to go through an entire review process of the ICF to showcase that they do in fact align effectively with the ICF core competencies. Now in ACSTH, anyone can get that approved. They don't have to have the MCC. So a PCC or ACC coach could put out training and get that approved as an accredited coach specific training hours, or ACSTH. The biggest difference between an ACTP and an ACSTH is an ACTP is kind of like a one-stop shop for your coaching credential. So if you go through an ACTP program and effectively complete that, you'll have everything you need to go ahead and apply for your ICF credential, as long as you have those minimum experience requirements, being the 100 hours for an ACC and the 500 hours for a PCC. So you will just then submit that and you will be able to take the coach knowledge assessment that we'll talk about in a couple minutes. And you see that abbreviated often as CKA. So an ACTP is like that one-stop shop. It has to have the 125 training hours. So once you complete it, as soon as you have your experience hours, you can go ahead and apply for your whichever one's relevant, your ACC or your PCC. Accredited coach specific training hours might not have the whole 125. Now, in order for a program to be accredited at that highest level on the left side of the screen, the ACTP, the training director, as the ICF calls it, needs to have their master coach certification. So it does need to be led by an MCC. So that's probably the reason there's less ACTP programs that exist out there than accredited coach specific training hours. I'm going to pause here for a second just to see if anyone has any questions coming up. Specifically. And as I'm doing that, just wanted to mention again that the vetting process for the ICF to accredit at these levels, or approve, I should say, at these levels, making sure it covers the core competencies, making sure it covers the ICF definition of coaching, and making sure it aligns and covers the ICF Code of Ethics. Okay. I do see a question coming in. I need a better way to decide on credential courses based on the criteria of virtual, price, competency, credits, etc. Currently, the ICF lists programs without a decision grid. Yeah, that's a really good point. So there's a lot of things to weigh, and I think you put a number of those up there. So is it virtual? A lot of them are going to be virtual, but they are required from an accreditation or approval standpoint to have a synchronous aspect, like what we're doing right now. The price that's offered, and then one thing that comes with the price. So for example, the ACTP program that I lead is through a university. So I know that's a big part of what, students like, the credibility that comes from a university, if that's something that's important to you, but also then if they enroll in a graduate certificate, they're eligible for student aid, financial aid, which can be a big deciding factor to your point. And then how long it takes them to credit, absolutely. So I think that's a great thing to pop in the suggestion box around how the ICF can improve that training provider list. Are the hours cumulative or new? 100 to 100 to 500. Oh, got it. Nope, your 500s once you reach the 500 after you begin training. It doesn't start over after you attain that first 100 for the ACC. Good question, Lori, thanks. Okay. So in general, as we talk about, the requirements that go into getting your credential, there's a few different components. There's the training that we've touched on a bit already, mentor coaching, experience requirements, taking that coach knowledge assessment, and then performance evaluations. So what we're going to do is kind of break these down and talk about each of these. One thing I do want to point out is that if you were to participate in an ACTP program, so that highest level, your training, your mentor coaching, and your performance evaluations are covered for you in that program. So that's one of the benefits, is that you get all of those. You would then just need to meet your minimum experience requirements of the 100 or 500 hours, and then submit your application to take that coach knowledge assessment, which is a multiple choice test, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. So if we break each of these down just a little bit more, first we have the coach training piece that we've touched on quite a bit already. So there's the ACTP, Accredited Coach Training Program, and the ACSTH, Accredited Coach Specific Training Hours Program, that tell you that they are approved by the ICF. So it must be coach-specific training to count towards your credential. Now, the question that came up in the chat from Chuck is a great reminder that on the ICF website, although he pointed out some opportunities maybe to make it even better, there is that training, provider database where you can put in some criteria, you can search, and you can find different coach training. And again, that's a very personal choice too. So it's great to talk to folks about what did they enjoy most about their training, coach training? What did they wish they knew? And maybe that would actually be fun in the chat here. Go ahead and pop in the chat, what coach training did you participate in, or are you currently or planning on participating in as part of your journey? And we can get a little bit of a gauge of kind of all the diversity and what folks are doing. So we got some IPEC, we got some CTI, offer renewal training. Maureen asked if Lewis University, the university that I teach at, offers renewal training, so for renewing your credentials. If anyone were to take any of the courses that are accredited by the ICF from Lewis right now, that would count towards your renewal hours. And we are exploring the possibility of workshops and things that would offer CCEUs as well. So stay tuned. Bless you. Gosh, we've got so many diverse options showing up in the chat here. Fantastic. So check that out. And a couple shout outs to Lewis University. Thanks, everyone. Okay. And then we have the mentor coaching piece. Okay. So mentor coaching comes into play when you are getting your credential. It also comes into play in most cases when you're renewing your credential. So mentor coaching for an ICF credential consists of coaching and feedback in a collaborative dialogue and process based on observed or recorded coaching sessions. So if you are seeking, and I encourage, all coaches, as an MCC, it's so important to me to engage in mentor coaching. Otherwise, we're just out there on an island doing our thing, and there's so little opportunity for feedback other than the fact that we, hear from our clients that and our coachees that they're getting a ton of value and benefiting, which is great, but there's so much value that I can personally attest to in having another experienced coach that you respect give you feedback on your coaching. Now, when you're going through the process of getting your credential, upgrading your credential, even renewing your credential, one of the things that I really encourage you to do as you're interviewing and vetting your mentor coaches is ask them about their familiarity and their experience with the PCC markers. You're going to hear me talk quite a bit about the PCC markers in the second half of our conversation today. These PCC markers are something that the ICF put together over the last, really few years, within the last decade. And it's helped to, again, really put some standardization around the process. It used to be when I would evaluate coaching for the ICF, we'd get a coaching recording, we'd have the 11 core competencies, and then we would be asked to rate how that coaching session really brought in that competency on a scale of 1 to 10, with very little direction over what's a 1, what's a 3, what's a 5, what's a 7, what's a 10. So what would happen is there was tremendous inconsistency just from the fact that we are human beings and being subjective. So having these PCC markers created, which give very clear evidence, which is observable artifacts in a coaching conversation, that a competency is in fact being put into play, has now really helped to standardize and bring even more consistency and credibility to this process. So when you're working with a mentor coach, making sure that they feel tremendously comfortable, not only with the competencies, but with the PCC markers. Maybe even looking for someone who has done assessment and evaluation for the ICF is another way to do this, because there's a lot of coaches who support the ICF in that capacity. But mentor coaching should be working with a coach that you respect and trust, someone who is at the same or higher level than you in their credential and is intimately familiar with how to observe and utilize the PCC markers as far as the competencies go. And when you're working with a mentor coach, it's great to have, productive conversation with them. Maybe you want to talk about your business every now and then. That's great. But to qualify fully as mentor coaching, it needs to be getting coaching on your coaching, guidance on your coaching, and mentorship on your coaching. So in order for them to do that, they have to hear you coach. So that's a really important part. All right, then we have the coach experience hours. So again, we're starting to go a little bit deeper, double clicking on some of the things we've already introduced here as we talk about your credential. So that ACC, Associate Certified Coach, is 100 hours of client coaching experience. PCC is 500 hours, and MCC is 2,500 hours. Now, of the 100 hours for the ACC, at least 70 of these hours need to be paid coaching. So that is important just to kind of mention as far as what pro bono versus paid coaching looks like. And you'll see this breakdown for each of the number of hours and number of clients. So for ACC, at least 100 hours with 70 paid, with at least 8 separate clients. With your PCC, you have to have at least 500 hours. And currently, because of the pandemic, they're allowing you to have 440 of these paid and 60 be pro bono. But these need to have at least 25 clients, right? And then with the MCC, same thing, currently allowing 2,200 of them to be paid, with the balance being pro bono. And when I say paid and pro bono, the ICF does recognize that if you're just getting started or things like that, it can be a little bit challenging to specifically be in a situation where you have a bunch of paying clients, which, you know, some of us might have experienced that when we got started. Makes sense. So they do offer an opportunity for you to do what they call barter coaching. And when I say barter coaching, what we mean by that is coaching someone in exchange for coaching. So basically how you're paying each other for your services is by coaching each other. And this is called barter coaching. So you are allowed to count barter coaching as paid coaching. They don't set a minimum amount of money. So you can't say like, oh, well, $5 an hour is too little. Although I encourage all of us to be paid what we're worth based on our fantastic expertise and skill set and value. But there's not a threshold as far as what amount of money counts as paid coaching. But pro bono coaching absolutely can be done completely for free, free of cost to whoever you're providing that coaching to. Okay. Skip asked a question. I thought your mentor had to be an MCC. So if you are going for your MCC, you have to have an MCC mentor coach. So you can't be going, you can't submit a PCC coach as your mentor coach if you are applying to become an MCC. So you want them to be at least at the level that you're applying for. So at the MCC level, that's the only option, is you have to have an MCC. So thank you for that question. Okay. How does it work if you're an internal coach for a company? So Sherry, I think this is counting your coaching experience hours. If part of your job, your paid responsibility is coaching, it can't be your direct reports, but if part of your job is coaching other people, you can count those hours that in your work you are doing actual coaching by the definition of the ICF. You can count that towards paid hours. Good question. All right, let's chat a bit about the coach knowledge assessment. So, I don't know, I think there's probably a big percentage of the world that has test anxiety, right? We don't love the idea that we have to take a test. But I do feel like this test does a very good job of assessing the 3 things it's setting out to do. So the coach knowledge assessment, oh, and someone actually in here is going to be taking their assessment today or tomorrow. Fantastic, how timely, good luck. The coach knowledge assessment covers 3 content areas. It covers the ICF definition of coaching, it covers the ICF core competencies, and it covers the ICF code of ethics. And it is completely in a multiple choice test question format. Each question has 4 answer choices. So once your application credential is reviewed, you'll be contacted by the ICF to talk about next steps for your review process. And usually what that entails is taking your coach knowledge assessment. So you'll be given a certain time frame to complete it within. And the way that it works is, unlike some other industry credentials where you have to go to a testing center or testing facility, you can actually take this from your own personal computer at home. But it does have a certain time limit on it and all those types of things where you have to take it within that amount of time. It contains 155 questions total. And most of them have a short statement or question with those 4 possible responses. And I thought maybe we could just look at a couple examples. Nothing like a pop quiz on a Wednesday, right? So I'll give everyone a second. Go ahead and take a look at this question here. What do we think the correct answer is? Yep. All right. So far, we got quite a pass rate going in here today. C is the correct answer. Here's one more for you, just for fun. Let's do a second one. I'm kind of pointing out the domains of the current competency model. Yep. And I see these answers coming in. Right again, B. But this gives you a really good idea of what you can expect when it comes down to that coach knowledge assessment, what this is going to look like. All right. The last part of the credential process is the performance evaluation piece. So this is when you are submitting your examples of coaching sessions to the ICF for your credential. Again, if you take or complete an ACTP program, you will not have to do this as far as submitting it to the ICF. You'll submit it to your program for evaluation there. But you will submit recordings, and there are a number of kind of requirements around this. They want them to be between 20 and 60 minutes. Anything you submit that's over 60 minutes will not be scored. They need to be from an actual coaching session between you and either a paid or pro bono client. And you need to submit it as, you know, a specific file format. So they accept things like MP3, MP4, for example, and a few other parameters around the technology requirements there. And what they're going to be doing when you submit these, each of your recordings go to 2 assessors. And these assessors are trained to use the PCC markers, regardless of what level you're submitting for, ACC, PCC, or MCC. They use the PCC markers to note evidence of each marker throughout your coaching conversation. So when you submit these, you want to make sure you're submitting coaching examples that you feel really embody and exemplify these PCC markers. Now, at an MCC level, they're going to need to see a lot more of these markers evidenced than they would need to see at an ACC level. However, as many of you probably know, the ICF is going through a huge transition right now, and they have completely revised their core competency model. They're moving from 11 core competencies to 8 core competencies. And with that, they are going to be completely revising the PCC markers and then also revising the coach knowledge assessment. There's not an official date of release yet of when that's going to happen. It's going to take place at some point in 2021. So if you are already on your journey to achieve your credential, I encourage you, go ahead and make a goal to get it done before the first half of 2021 is over. That way, you won't be caught up in the middle of a shift as the competencies are changing. Now, these competencies are not a complete departure where we're starting over with a whole new set of skills for a coach. That's not the case at all. These 11 core competencies are well represented within the new 8. However, they've been put together in a way that I personally, and I think I've spoken to Susan about this too, you know, I think it represents what we're really doing as coaches out there in the wild, so to speak, right? Really well. So I appreciate the work that's gone into this and all the time and effort into a very, very research-based and data-driven process. So the PCC markers being created, needing to be recreated are one of the reasons that this is not going to roll out until at some point in 2021. And then the next steps is they will actually be looking to create differentiated sets, ACC markers and MCC markers with 3 separate sets. But right now, the best tool for you to lean on, your guide through this process, are those PCC markers and a really great mentor coach. And then the pricing. So you can find this as well as this other information that I've talked about on the ICF website. And the prices did change in the last couple of years, but here's the current standing of where they're at. You can see the cost, and then the reason that there's two costs for each are based on if you are an ICF member or if you are not currently a member of the ICF. Okay. All right. And what's the main reason for the cost differentiation? The levels of review that you have to go through. For example, when you go through that ACTP program, they don't have to review your recordings. That's already done in your program. Kind of like one and done, one-stop shop. With the accredited coach specific training hours program, they have to review your 2 coach recordings. So that's why the cost is just a little bit more. All right, so I've touched a little bit on the idea that there's different skill levels, and we look at the PCC markers right now are the best tool and the tool that the assessors actually use to assess your level of coaching. So that is the #1 tool and guide to use, and just become a student of these markers. So really invite yourself to become engaged with learning them. You know, take them one at a time and focus on really ingraining it into your practice. Again, those new markers are in development, but we're not going to get those for a while. And the competencies are not going to be a complete overhaul. It's really not a redesign as much as it is of a kind of innovating how we speak to them and how we put them into the 8 categories as opposed to the 11, and how they really represent what we're doing in a coaching conversation. All right, so that's kind of the overview part. That's the me talking at you part of our time together today, which thank goodness that part's over, right? But let me just turn the tables here and invite everyone who's on the call to share either an experience as they're going through the process, some collective wisdom that we can impart in the group, or any questions that you might have for myself or all of the others that are embarking on this journey or have gone through this journey that are on the call today as well. Sherry, where can we locate the markers on the ICF website? Okay. Hey, Cheryl, would you mind pulling up the PCC markers on the ICF website and putting it in the chat?
Will do.
I would close out of my presentation if I did that. So thanks for
Okay.
that. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to try to manage the chat here. You guys are making me multitask. So let's see. Oh, questions about the transcription. So yes, when you submit your coaching examples, your coaching sessions to the ICF, you also need to submit a transcript. So as an assessor, I'm looking at both. I'm listening to the coaching, but I'm also looking at the transcript. So we use both when we assess the coaching. Okay. Sorry, guys. Oh, and Dennis threw the PCC markers in there for us, so thank you. Created a study group with a few others. I mean, that's a fantastic idea, like a mastermind group or a study group. If your renewal is due at the end of the year, are they allowing any extensions? So Maureen, I haven't seen anything completely come out this year yet for extensions. I know if there are extenuating circumstances though, that, you know, reach out to the ICF. So I always encourage everyone, you know, they're real people that work there. So reach out to the ICF if you have questions or need support in that space. Because I have heard of others that have, you know, needed a little flexibility, you know, due to a valid reason, and they've been able to flex with them. So it never hurts to ask. When we renew our level, do we need to have a log of our, okay. So the ICF has taken away the requirement where you submit a log of every single person you've coached and number of hours for confidentiality. However, yes, make sure you keep your log up to date and accurate. Should you be audited, which happens in credential processes like this, like a randomization of the auditing process, they could potentially ask you to submit your log. So you do want to have that in place. Is there a place, call, resource with ICF that talks about pricing our services or coaching? I'm not aware of an ICF resource that does that, but I know that I really wished that that was part of my coach training. So we built that into our training program for exactly the reason you're asking. I know, it's the type of thing people want to know. So I'd reach out to other coaches and learn a little bit about how they price their services, how they make those decisions. Created a study group. Okay, great. And recertifying for PCC. So if you are recertifying for PCC and you already have your PCC, okay. So if you're recertifying for your PCC and you already have your PCC, then you are going to need to have your education hours that you are sharing. Here, guys. Okay, so are any of you attending these monthly calls? And part of the reason that you're doing that is because you are looking to get your hours for recertification? Okay. So as we talk about, recertification, that's a big part. And it's like that in so many other, industry credentials where you do need to have continuing education. In our case, we're looking for continuing coach education to help us continue to grow in our profession. And you're actually going to see that in the new competency model, It Embodies a Coaching Mindset, where they talk about the importance of continued growth and development, regardless of what your experience level, credential level is. So when you submit your online renewal for your PCC, you need to have at least 40 hours of continuing coach education. And at least 24 of those hours need to be in the core competencies, and at least 3 need to be in coaching ethics. All the rest could be in resource development. And then there's also costs associated with that, and it's similarly broken out as it was with member and non-member of the ICF. And Maureen, I did just check really quick. Renewing your credential December 31st, their expiration date. They haven't come out with anything as far as an extension yet, but that might be something that comes out. Okay. All right. Let's see what other questions we're getting here. And I have 3 screens up, so I'm looking in 3 different places, everyone. Yes, Skip, go ahead, come off mute.
Hi. So I have completed many more than 500 hours, and I've just applied for the ACC because that's what I have logged. I lost quite a bit of my log when transferring data from one computer to another over the years, and so that I lost a big chunk of it. So this may be a question for them to call the office, the main, but so that's why I applied for the ACC. And my program at University of Miami, we're at the level of PCC, and we were, once we get 500, allowed to apply for that. That's part A of the question. And part B is, since I had that program and I qualified at the PCC with my recordings, would I have to do them again?
Would you have to do the recordings again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you will have to submit recordings when you apply for your PCC, because you've already applied for your ACC. You will have to submit recordings. You can ask the ICF if they would be open to having you submit the same recordings. I haven't actually come across that, so that's a really good question.
When I did the recordings at the University of Miami, they were acceptable as PCC then, but that was 5 years ago, so that things may have changed. When you do your recordings at Lewis, and your students and your coaches apply, do they apply for ACC or PCC when they complete the course?
They can apply for either, depending on how many experience hours they have.
Right.
We expect their coaching evaluations to all be at the PCC level.
Yeah, so that's where I was. So, but because I lost my log, I don't have proof of those hours if I was audited. That's why I'm applying for the ACC.
Yeah, I'd give the ICF a call, Skip, and see what they advise about kind of knowing that you lost some of those records and see what they say.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sure. Cheryl reminded us, Maureen, that last year it was a 3-month extension, the 2019 end of the year. Doug, is Lewis an ACTP or an accredited coach-specific training hours? We're the highest level of accreditation. We're an ACTP. And Maureen said she saw that. These details are on the website. All the details of the credential process that we've spoken about today are on the ICF website. Okay. All right. What did I miss? Feel free to come off mute. I think I'm doing a terrible job of multitasking the chat and navigating the voice questions here. So feel free to come off mute. What do we got?
Sheila, this is Bob Rourke. Can I speak with you for a moment?
Sure.
Can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Okay, great. So I've got my ACC and about 300 hours toward my PCC, and I'm wondering if there is any advantage in actually attending a program to help me move and complete the PCC. It strikes me as relatively straightforward. Number of hours, making sure I've got a mentor coach, make sure my log is up to date, and answer the questions. Is there anything that I'm missing there that would help me? If it would be significantly help me to go through a program.
And so I think I might have missed just a couple pieces of the detail there. So you are currently an ACC.
Correct.
You're going through your PCC.
Correct.
And did you go through an ACTP program?
I did.
Okay. So you should not need to submit recordings
Okay.
for that. Now, when does your credential expire?
In about 18 months.
Okay.
And I will have the necessary hours, 500 hours, well before then. So
Yeah.
I should be able to get my PCC before that expiration.
It would be the same as if you're applying to the PCC right out of your ACTP program. Do you still have your ACTP certificate?
I do.
Okay, so you're going to submit your ACTP certificate. They're going to verify that for you. You're going to attest to your 500 hours. And then after they approve all of that, did you already take the coach knowledge assessment?
I did. For the ACC.
Depending on when you took it, the coach knowledge assessment stays the same regardless of what level you're applying for. So depending on when you took that, you might not even need to take that again. So it might literally be a paperwork process for you.
Super. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for making me think for a second. All right.
Hi, Sheila. I have a question. It's Linda Liang. Hi, everyone. Do you need to renew your, let's say I pass ACC soon, which I'm working hard on, as you know. Do you need to renew that every year?
No, so it's a multi-year renewal process. It's a 3-year renewal process.
Oh, and at the end of 3 years, do I need additional coaching hours in a log, or do I just need education?
So you'll need those continuing coach education like we talked about. And then if you are an ACC coach, this only applies to an ACC renewing an ACC, you will need 10 additional hours of mentor coaching. So how's that for a little bit of inspiration for everybody? After you get your ACC, go for that PCC. Because renewing from PCC to PCC, you do not need the 10 hours of mentor coaching. Although I feel bad saying that, because like I told you, I think mentor coaching is tremendously beneficial for my own personal practice outside of, even though it's not required as part of my renewal. Make sense, Linda?
Yes, so you don't need, they're not going to check your coaching hours once you get qualified as an ACC or PCC. So if my business tips down or it goes crazy, it doesn't really have an impact.
Yes, once
It's
that,
just the education and the mentor coaching and the submission of the coaching sessions.
continuing for renewal, it's the continuing education, and for ACC to ACC, it's the 10 hours of mentor coaching.
And do you need to take the exam if I go from ACC to PCC?
It depends on when you took it. If they haven't changed it, now we're going to go into an interesting period of time because we're upgrading the competency model. But no, if you just took it, you will not need to retake it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And Maureen's soliciting a study group, which I love it. Okay.
I have a quick suggestion for the person that's getting ready to take their coach knowledge test. I had all my notes right there next to me. I wrote out other notes, and I took the whole 3 hours. I took my time taking a test so that I didn't, because some of the questions were kind of tricky. Sure. So yeah, just take your time and know that you know the information.
I love that idea.
Thank you so much. Do they give a passing rate, Sheila, or is that a secret?
You know, I don't know off the top. My coworkers here with me, guys, sorry. I don't know what their threshold to passing the coach knowledge assessment is off the top of my head.
It was 70% when I took it.
I was going to say 75, but I bet you're right. I bet it's 70%. I can look it up really quick.
It is 70%.
70%. And they tell you immediately if you pass.
Yep, they tell you immediately. That was great.
Yeah, so some of these assessments where you have like open-ended questions that they have to score or case studies, they don't have this. So the second you hit submit on the test, your score pops up and your, pass or did not pass pops up. And if you study those 3 things, you are going to be in great shape to do well on this assessment. Okay, so 70%.
Plus, I have the best mentor coach in the world, so Sheila.
Thank you for that.
Sheila, I thought it was 1 recording for ACC. Is it 2?
It is. I might have said 2. It's 1 when you are submitting your recordings to the ICF for the ACC level. It's 1 recording. 2 recordings for PCC, 2 recordings for MCC, 1 recording for ACC. So thank you for.
Thank you. That's a relief.
1 recording. Any other questions? I know we only have a couple minutes left with our scheduled time. Susan, any sage wisdom that you want to inject? Anything I missed?
You know, the only thing I want to say is I want Chicago, I want you guys to realize how lucky we are to have Sheila here, like how knowledgeable she is. And this is terrific. So I got my MCC so long ago and these rules were completely different. So 1, thank you for doing it. It's complicated. It's in change. So I think I hope that I don't think recordings are really easy to find on the site. I think this has been something that maybe ICF Chicago should really promote as something to listen to for everybody who's a new coach. So thank you for doing it. You did a great job.
Oh, well, that's not what I was asking for when.
No, I know. Okay, so I am hosting next time for the call in October, and we're going to go to the first new competency of the 8. So I'm doing the ethical practices next month. So come, bring your questions. We'll have fun.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. And yes, there's a little something to look forward to for October, joining Susan for Competency 1. Thanks so much for all the questions and engagement. I hope this was helpful. If I can do anything to support you or answer questions that pop up after we end today, just reach out. Thanks everyone. Any closing announcements, Cheryl or Misty?
No, just thanks everyone. And I really appreciate that suggestion, Susan, that we put this on our website. So I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, no, promote it. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's I mean, Sheila did a great job, but there's a lot there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions that people have all the time. So I'm pretty sure that we will be posting this. So thanks again,
Okay,
Sheila.
good. Thank
Sheila,
you.
can I
Okay.
ask a ask, Sheila, can I ask if you have your contact information on the website up to date so we could find you if we needed to?
Cheryl, can I ask you, do we have our contact information?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, we do.
It
All
should
right.
be up to date. Yeah. And if
Thank
not
you,
Bob,
Cheryl.
I can give you her contact information.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone. Enjoy
See
the
you
rest
guys
of the
next
day.
month.
Bye.
Thank you, Sheila.
You're welcome. Bye. Good luck with the test.
Thank you. Thank you.